Hey, what's up everybody and welcome back to News Dose, and we are coming off Black Friday week. I hope you all got everything that you were looking for if you were in on the hunt, but interestingly enough, some Black Friday data is starting to make its way online. This includes some pretty major spikes over in the UK, and then also a surprising trend revealing a possible unexpected winner for Black Friday being the Xbox Series X. Yeah, not the Xbox Series S, not the Nintendo Switch, or even the PlayStation 5, but according to a new report, the Series X might have came away as a big winner during Black Friday week. So we are going to dive into all of that today. Also, a little bit of an amusing story. Some new footage is making its way around, revealing modders might have fixed Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and we'll just call it in unofficial terms. It does highlight something though that probably isn't necessarily a great look for Game Freak or really Nintendo for that matter, so we'll get into that as well. Before we get started though, if you do find yourself enjoying the video, make sure to hit those buttons below, like, subscribe, and because it is the holiday season, go ahead and ring that bell as well. Without further ado though, let's just go and jump right into it, starting off with another PlayStation game that could be heading to a PC near you sometime here soon. Of course, Sony is taking the PC side of things much more serious. I mean, we all know this by this point, so I don't think it's really all that surprising when we hear about these PlayStation PC ports anymore. And really, I think we're kind of getting to that point of asking ourselves, which one's next? Well, this time it could actually be for one of their biggest franchises ever made, being Gran Turismo. This is coming directly from the Gran Turismo creator, as he was asked on whether or not he would consider porting Gran Turismo 7 over to PC. And yeah, let's just go and check out his response here. He said, "Yes, I do think so." And then he went on to say, "Gran Turismo is a very finely tuned title. There are not many platforms which could run the game in 4K 60 frames per second natively, so one way we make that possible is to narrow down the platform. It's not a very easy subject, but of course, we are looking into it and considering it." So on one side, this isn't necessarily a flat-out yes, so don't look at this as a confirmation or anything like that. But he does very specifically in his explanation with "we are looking into it and we are considering it." Yeah, I don't think that you can be much more straightforward than that. Gran Turismo 7 on PC is an absolute possibility based on his response here. And honestly, I think it makes a lot of sense for Sony. For the most part, PlayStation has had a lot of success on PC. And of course, they also acquired Nixxes, which specializes in porting games over to PC. They did that for a reason, and that's because their eyes are now open to the fact that there's a lot of money laying on the table here. You know, I think that they've really just kind of figured out that porting these games doesn't really interfere with their console business too much, especially with how they stagger their releases. So this is relatively easy money for Sony, and it just kind of expands on their ecosystem even more. I also do firmly believe that Gran Turismo 7 would be a great fit for PC in the sense that there's not really a lot of these top-tier racing simulation experiences on PC. Now next year, that might be a little bit different because the next Forza Motorsports will likely head over to PC, but GT7 could be another one here, and then suddenly, PC games will have some of the best racing simulation experiences, just period. I mean, I could easily see these games having a ton of success on PC, and I think it's just great for fans all around. Next up here, it is starting to sound like we're closing in on a release date for the highly anticipated Street Fighter 6. Right now, we only have a release window being sometime in 2023, but over the weekend, it was spotted that Street Fighter 6 was rated in South Korea here recently. Now, one thing that we have seen a lot in recent years is that it seems like more often than not, when you see these ratings pop up online, some type of an announcement is made soon thereafter. Now, that's not always the case, but we do have one of the biggest showcases next month on December 8th, being the Game Awards. So yeah, you can kind of put two and two together here. Of course, there's no 100% guarantee, but considering the magnitude of the Street Fighter brand, it would make a lot of sense to show it at one of the most viewed showcases of the entire year, and then give it an official release date to really get that hype train rolling. They could also announce it with some other things as well. I mean, they could announce it alongside a beta, they could reveal a new character, they could talk about the story a little bit more. I mean, there's a lot that they could show alongside a release date if that's something that they want to do. I will say this much, though. I think this game looks really good based on what they've shown so far, and I think it's going to be even more hype than usual, because it is the return of it being multi-platform. Last generation, of course, Sony had it locked down as a PlayStation console exclusive, but this time it is back on Xbox alongside PC and PlayStation. So I think with how good this game looks, and with the return of it being multi-platform, I think there's going to be a ton of hype this time. For that matter, the Game Awards is looking pretty hype right now as well. I mean, just go ahead and add Street Fighter 6 to the Game Awards rumors alongside Final Fantasy 16 and possibly an Elden Ring expansion reveal. That alone would make the Game Awards very, very exciting. Alright, so let's just go and get into the Black Friday sales data here. I mean, this is such a massive week that really just kind of sets the tone for the holiday period. And there were definitely some big winners here. Now, we'll first start off with the UK box charts, as GfK reported the best-selling games in that particular region. And if you look here, you can see the top 10 best-selling games. Now, most of these I wouldn't necessarily say is a huge surprise. FIFA 23, which is huge over in the UK, did come away as the #1 bestseller, though it did actually see a 95% increase compared to its previous week. This was because it did have a discount, and it was also included in some hardware bundles as well. Either way, I'd say that that's pretty impressive stuff. Call of Duty, meanwhile, reclaimed its #2 spot, surpassing Pokemon, while Pokemon Violet sits at #3 and Scarlet at #6. With those two combined, though, it'd be interesting to see if those surpass Call of Duty and actually the likes of FIFA. All those, though, were pretty much expected to remain in the top 10, however. But the big increases was in regards to Sonic Frontiers, and then pretty much across the board, Nintendo's first-party games saw a major increase. As you can see, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which just continues to sell, shot up to the #4 best-selling game with a massive 226% increase. And yes, you did hear that right, a 226% increase. And I mean, this game was already selling well and everything, but thanks to their Black Friday Switch bundle, it's once again proving to be a hot holiday item. Check out what GameIndustry.biz said about some of these other Nintendo games, though. They said retail copies of Switch games performed very well over Black Friday, and yes, they got that right, because as you can see, Nintendo Switch Sports is #8. It enjoyed a sales rise of 138%. Animal Crossing New Horizons, #10, is up 85%. And then you have The Legends of Zelda Breath of the Wild, #11, that jumped up 426%. And they said the latter was part of a hardware bundle from Amazon. So yeah, Nintendo is looking to have another massive holiday. And really, this just follows the news we heard last week, where Pokemon Scarlet and Violet sold a whopping 10 million units in just 3 single days. Yeah, I am very curious to see their finalized results for the holiday. Now, as for Sonic, though, this was one of the really good discounts that we saw throughout Black Friday week. I mean, this game just released earlier this month, and already it's been getting a pretty enticing 50% discount, taking it all the way down to $30. Again, we're basically talking about a brand new game here, already 50% off. Honestly, when things like this happen, I really do wonder about purchasing games day one at all. But thanks to these discounts, Sonic Frontier saw a 203% increase, putting it at the #7 spot. So big congrats to both Sega and Nintendo here. Now, there's also another report going around, though, that claimed to reveal some of the hottest items in general that were sold during last week's Black Friday. Now, we don't have official numbers just yet, so do just kind of keep that in mind, but Adobe posted a 2022 holiday shopping trends report revealing the 5 hottest items during this period, and that was the Xbox Series X, toys for a children's cartoon called Bluey, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, drones, and then MacBook computers. Now, it is important to note here that we don't know exactly how Adobe puts together these analytics, but it is rather interesting that according to their data, that the Xbox Series X was the only console in the top 5 hottest items. So, I mean, at the very least, it appears the Xbox Series X was a very sought-after and popular item. This did kind of surprise me, though, because even in terms of Xbox consoles, I figured the Xbox Series S would be the more popular device this Black Friday, considering, I mean, it had some great discounts. Some places were selling it for $200. So I am a little surprised to see the Xbox Series X lead in terms of the results here. Again, this doesn't include official numbers, so we'll still have to wait for more information on all of that and see if these Adobe Analytics hold up. But I do want to take this moment to kind of highlight something, and that's that Xbox's strategy. It's paying off. I mean, if we're being honest here, Xbox has gotten off to a little bit of a slow start this generation in terms of big blockbuster first-party releases. It really seems like 2023 is when those games will start coming a little bit more frequently. But even without those games, without games like Starfield, which got delayed into 2023, they're still holding their own to the point that it looks like the Xbox Series X could actually be the hottest item, or at least during Black Friday week. And that is incredibly, incredibly impressive. I mean, if you look at just the United States alone, you can see that the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series have been pretty much neck and neck all generation long. And that bodes very well for Xbox, considering, again, they still have their big games looming. So I think, if anything, Xbox Game Pass, their 2 SKU platform strategy, and just being a really good console for those big third-party titles, they're showing that these things are winning for Xbox. I mean, even with their big first-party releases and all the different acquisitions that they've made, there's a lot of excitement surrounding Xbox right now, and I think that bleeds over into how well this console has done this generation. Their future is very, very bright, and I think it's kind of gotten to the point that it's now their present is very, very bright. I always like to say it, but competition breeds excellence, and with PlayStation and Xbox being more competitive this generation, it should be a fantastic, and I mean an absolutely fantastic, for all gamers on all sides. It's really going to be a fun generation, and I am all for it. I love seeing all three of these platforms just be competitive and successful, because I know for us gamers, that means good things are about to follow. Let's go and talk about that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet situation again, though, because this story just keeps evolving. Of course, this game has gone on to break records. It sold 10 million units in 3 days, and the game itself is a lot of fun. I'm personally having an absolute blast with this game, but there's still those technical issues looming, and this conversation seems to dominate social media alongside Nimona basically being Goku. But there are a lot of fans patiently, or not so patiently, waiting for some fixes. Well, actually, a fix was posted this weekend, but it wasn't by Game Freak. Instead, a modder posted footage of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet running at 60 frames per second on an emulator. Now, I have to say, it actually looks beautiful in motion. Now, I'm not going to post it for obvious reasons. You know, Nintendo, they don't necessarily take kindly to this type of stuff, but if you are interested in finding that footage, it's pretty easily found. Nonetheless, you can see that it looks great running at 60 frames, but that's also kind of a strange situation for Nintendo. Something that we are starting to see is that Switch emulation is advancing pretty quick. Earlier this year, Xenoblade 3 was playable through emulation before even officially released, and now you have a brand new game here, the biggest game for the entire year, and it has issues on the Nintendo Switch, while on the other side of the coin, it's running pretty well through emulation. So that's not particularly a great look for Nintendo. Now, to be clear though, that is to be expected. When you have an ultra-powerful PC, of course, it's going to look better on PC. But the reason I think that this particular mod is getting so much attention is because it highlights the issues Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is having on Switch hardware. I think that if the game was running a stable 30 frames per second on the Switch, this wouldn't necessarily be all that big of a deal, but because it's having all these issues on the Switch, and then you see it on emulation just kind of running perfectly, it's going to get a little bit more attention. Now, there is differing opinions on all the problems that it's having on the Switch, though. Is it just Game Freak not being very good on the technical side of things, or is it some type of evidence that we need a Switch successor? I personally believe that it's a little bit of both. I mean, we've seen other games like Xenoblade 3 and Zelda Breath of the Wild perform pretty well on the Switch, so you would think that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet can achieve something similar, and that's where you kind of look at Game Freak as like, you know, maybe they could do something better here. But at the same time, we are closing in on the Switch's 6th year, and it is starting to show its age a little bit, and not just necessarily with Pokemon. So disregarding Pokemon here for a moment, I'm still hoping for a soonish Switch successor. Going back to Pokemon, though, I mean, ultimately, I think most of this game's problems lies with Game Freak, and I do believe that we will get a patch sometime down the road fixing up some of its issues. In the meantime, I still think that this game is incredibly fun. I'll actually go so far as to say that it's some of the most fun that I've had in any game this year, just as a whole, and that's even with its issues. So I really hope that they get that patch out soon to make it even better. Let's go take a look at the poll of the day, though, where I asked you all, if you were Sony, would you allow Xbox Game Pass on PlayStation consoles? And as you can see here, the results were actually pretty close, with 49% of you saying yes, while 42% of you said no. So opinions vary quite a bit on this one, and I wanted to understand exactly as to why. So I want to highlight two different comments here, one from each side. Here you have Dustin C saying, by allowing Game Pass on PlayStation, Sony would give its customers access to same games as Xbox users, plus they would have the exclusive Sony games. If anything, that would make customers want to get a PlayStation 5 over Xbox Series S and X, and that would also take fire out of Sony's argument that Game Pass hurts their console sales. So this is a pretty sound debate here. Xbox Game Pass on PlayStation would really catapult PlayStation 5 sales to just be dominant. As we talked about earlier, this generation in terms of consoles sold has been pretty competitive so far. But if Xbox Game Pass was hypothetically available on PlayStation 5, there's a chance that PlayStation 5 would really run away with things like they did with the PlayStation 4. Now, with that said, if this hypothetically were to happen, you have to remember that those Xbox Series exclusives would very possibly run through cloud gaming and not necessarily be native experiences, and that could actually be an important part of this situation. Now, as for the other side of the debate here, Kalo Nord said, no, I wouldn't want that if I were the head of Sony. That just means decreased profits, as I would now have to share my own platform with a competitor. From a business perspective, it makes no sense. Just think about it for a minute. Sony would not only lose sales from people not purchasing as many games, but they lose subscribers to their own subscription service. And this is actually the side I fall on for pretty much the exact same reason. For me personally, if we're looking at it from a consumer standpoint, obviously Game Pass on PlayStation would be good for gamers on PlayStation. But when it comes down to the business side of things, it's a little bit more tricky than just that. Software is typically how console makers make most of their money. So if you had a competing subscription service that's widely viewed to be a better service than your own, then that could take a lot of subscribers away from PlayStation Plus, which makes them a lot of money. Same thing when it comes to their games. If people are subscribing to Xbox Game Pass instead of buying games on PlayStation, that affects them as well. So looking from the outside in, I personally believe that no, I would not want Game Pass on PlayStation if I were Sony. Obviously though, this is a very divisive topic, as you can see with the results. They are very close, so do sound off below. Let me hear all of your all's opinions in the comments below. Anyways though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.